Hi, I'm Eric Altman with GitStorage, and we talk about the convenience of the cloud with the security of the premises. I had it backwards. It's okay. Yeah, it's good. So we're starting with the problem. That's a good thing, right? So here we go. We're talking about GitHub here, if people use that to store their code. And a lot of people are asking the question, is it safe? Because you're storing your code in the cloud. Now, if it's open source code, that's fine. You want that to be out there for people to see it. But if you've got private source code that's the lifeblood of your company, is that safe to be on the cloud? Just last week, there were a couple of denial of service attacks with GitHub, and they did rebound back quickly, but that just shows you the how fragile it all is. So we've got people asking this question, and so we have an answer. Now, running Git as a service in the network is not trivial, meaning the answer to this would be, hey, why don't I just bring all that code in-house? And I could bring it in-house by building a Git server. Building that Git server is not trivial. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of maintenance and updating. And for a lot of companies, it's just a little too much. It's a little more than they can handle. It's kind of our story because we came on, we found that where we thought that our code was getting potentially stolen. And when code gets stolen, it's not like money getting stolen. It doesn't disappear. It's still right where you left it, but you start seeing other software that could start looking like yours. In fact, even having the same bugs as your software had. So we went to okay, let's build a Git server, and saw that this was a lot of work. Just keeping it updated, we felt like we were going to have a full-time person just managing that one Git server. So we decided to kind of build our own device. So with GitStorage, it's the first ever on-premise Git server appliance with a built-in user interface. So for those of you working on GitHub, you've got a Git client that allows you to collaborate with your code. There's an interface built into this that allows you to do that as well. So you can have all of your repositories in here, and you can define which users can have read access or read and write access. There's only Git server running on it. When you build this Git server, if you're adding all kinds of other software, that just gives the potential for leaks. Your code could leak out. So with this device, all we've got on there is Git server. That's the only thing running. It's an encrypted flash drive, so if the device gets unplugged, it automatically encrypts. So it's basically useless to anyone unless they have that encryption password. So even if this device were stolen, nobody can do anything with it without that encryption password. And that needs to be a strong password and a password that you don't forget, because if you do forget that password, you need to reset the device. So we're definitely, this is about security, so we can't just have a forgot password link. And also, we do an automatic encrypted backup to Dropbox. Eventually, we'll back up to other sites as well, or other places in the cloud, but right now we've got to work with Dropbox, where when that is backed up automatically, it will be encrypted as well, and that will require another encryption password, different than the one I was just talking about, in order to retrieve those files and potentially restore them onto a new device. It's a proprietary TLS implementation, meaning that we built everything from the ground up as far as the security in it. So we're not using any open source, it's all our own code. And full collaboration with control over who can read and write. Again, you define the users, you give them logins, and then you can say who has a read only and who has a read and write and can go in there and do stuff. Here's a picture of it. So we've got two different models, 64 gigabyte and 16 gigabyte. I've got one in my pocket back here. So that's the 64 gigabyte, just a small Linux server running Raspberry Pi. And I'm running out of time. So let me just finish up here because we do have a video. This is just the login page. So this is where you log in. And I think we have the video elsewhere. Let me run that. Did you have that up?
It's right near the bottom of the folder. It says Git storage in there.
Flash news. Big Git hoster got hacked. Millions of companies affected. Intellectual property compromise causing billions of dollars in damage. Hackers are at large. What if you were in this situation? Your source code is valuable intellectual property, which is now at risk of being used by your competitors. They can reap benefits by plagiarizing your best work. Years of hard work now down the drain. Will this happen to you? The question is not if, but when. Is there a better way to protect your code? Yes, and that's why we created GitStorage. GitStorage combines the convenience of the cloud with the safety of your premises. It's a small yet powerful solid-state Linux server created with the sole purpose of hosting your code inside your own network. There's nothing else running on it. It can be fixed to your work table, on top or below, or just mounted on the wall. You can connect it to your local area network, and you can control who can access it physically and from the network. It's quite easy to use too. Power up, log in with a browser. Enter the device user credentials and an additional password to gain access to the encrypted content, and voila! You can create new repositories or import existing ones from the other cloud-based Git services. Then assign users and code, as you would normally do. Now your code is safe in your network and secure in your premises. The code is stored on the device in an encrypted format, and only authorized users can access it. If the device breaks or gets lost, your code can then be retrieved from the cloud, where the backup is also stored in an encrypted format. The backup encryption password is unique and must be entered if you want to use the backup in another device. Storing your data locally is not only secure, it's also good for your wallet and the environment. It is cheaper than setting up a server on your own, and the small device helps reduce power consumption and heat over the years. And our web front saves you time managing your Git repositories so that you can focus on coding, not maintaining servers. GitStorage, a better way to keep your code safe.
All right. Any questions?
With your code in the cloud, you're putting your most valuable asset at risk of being stolen.
You mentioned that the backup is on our cloud, so what prevents that backup from being hacked when you can hack?
It is encrypted in Dropbox, so even if it were to be hacked, again, same thing. Without that encryption password, they're not going to be able to get to the actual code. It's AES 256 encryption, so I get your question because it's like, hey, we're taking it off the cloud and we're putting it back on the cloud. So that's for a backup, and it will be encrypted in the cloud as well. So that's.
It seems that enough hackers can still brute force.
Well, I don't think they can break AES 256 encryption, which is what it's behind. So I think it would be safer in that respect.
I think that the purpose of GitHub basically is social coding, so you can see how others solve problems. This looks more like a complement to GitHub, actually. You can do that for your own projects that are very proprietary, etc. But eventually, you want to collaborate with others, right? And
If you want to collaborate with others at other companies, I mean, if this is your private source code and you want to collaborate within your company, this is your GitHub. This is where everything's going to be stored. For open source projects, absolutely. So we're not saying to remove everything from GitHub. Certainly keep your public projects up there. But if you've got the private source code that's the lifeblood of your company, might as well bring that in-house and keep that on the GitStorage server.
GitHub also provides, as the other colleague was saying, an environment for collaboration, for pull requests, for code reviews, things like that. Does your platform provide just
Certainly for pull requests, you can commit right from there. So it's basically a Git client is the user interface that's built into that. So you can still do your pull requests, push it back, and commit right there from the user interface.
What support do you have for integration with other elements of the CI toolchain?
Repeat it one more time.
The CI toolchain. You check into GitStorage. You want to fire off build and circle CI or something like that. What facilities do you have for integration, continuous integration tools?
That's a good question. I don't really have the answer to that one. To be honest.
How much does it cost?
So there are two versions, the 64 gig and the 16 gig. The 64 gig is $499, 16 gigs is $399, and it's available on Amazon. And it's, usually a question comes up is does everybody have to have one? No. I mean, 64 gigs can hold a lot of code, so that's one per company. One-time charge, and we'll give you free updates for a year as we update the software.
Okay.
I did all right then.
Thank you.
Thank you.